Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the City of Powell River Council Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, April 19th, 2022 at 3:30 p.m. I'd like to, and welcome, I'd like to honor that we're holding this meeting on the traditional territory of the Tla'amin people. And the mayor's not here, but I understand he is on his way, so we won't announce him away with leave quite yet. So first on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Any additions, changes? Seeing, hearing none, motion to accept. Councillor Dowd, second. Councillor Leishman, all in favor? Great, unanimous, thank you. Adoption of the minutes of the regular committee of the whole meeting held April 5, 2022. Any changes, any edits to this? Motion to accept. Councillor Dowd, Councillor Leishman, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Or any opposed? Oh. Delegations, 3-1, Annie Weiss, Executive Director of Sunshine Coast Tourism, regarding Sunshine Coast Tourism Annual Report and Activities Update. And just before we start our delegations, I would like to state very clearly that delegations presenting to Council present on their own behalfs, express opinions that represent either themselves or organizations that they are a part of, and not necessarily the position of city or council. Also, that delegations are, by our procedure bylaw, allocated 10 minutes. Annie, please go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Certainly can.
Great. I'm just going to share my screen if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Are you able to see that?
Not quite yet.
Oh.
Oh. It was there and then it went away.
Oh, let's try again.
Yep, we've got it now.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Annie Wise, and I am the Executive Director for Sunshine Coast Tourism. I began this role in August of last year after serving the previous 8 years as the Marketing Director. And I'd like to acknowledge that Sunshine Coast Tourism as a destination also includes the traditional and unceded territories of the Tla'amin, Klahoose, Homolthco, Sechelt, and Squamish nations. It's my honor to work here, to live here, and to raise my family here. So I've shared with you our letter request for annual funding for the amount of $28,000 for destination marketing services. And I thought it'd be useful to provide a brief overview of our organization and some update on our latest activities. We are a nonprofit association, and our mission is to build a strong and sustainable tourism economy on the Sunshine Coast, consistent with the values of residents. And we work to achieve that mission through 3 primary pillars: our destination marketing, our destination development and management, and by increasing the awareness of the value of tourism among our local governments, our residents, and businesses in our region. We are governed by a volunteer board of directors. They are elected by our stakeholders to 2-year terms, and they represent different geographic areas as well as subsectors within the tourism industry, including accommodations, recreation, arts, culture, and heritage. And we also have a full-time staff team of 4, and plus we manage 2 visitor center operations in the region for the town of Gibsons as well as the district of Sechelt. And we try to partner and provide service in conjunction with the Powell River Visitor Center as well as the Pender Harbor Visitor Information Center. We've also created 2 new tourism advisory committees, one for the southern half of the Sunshine Coast and one for the northern half, as an additional opportunity for our stakeholders and partners to be involved. We met last month for the first time, and I'd like to thank CAO Russell Brewer for his participation on behalf of the City of Powell River. If you're a visual person like me, I hope this graphic is helpful to see how our board is structured to balance voices from across the region in the various subsectors within tourism. As a nonprofit, we receive both public and private funding from three primary sources: our local governments, our stakeholders, and our visitors. And for over 10 years now, each of our local governments has provided a collective amount of approximately $80,000, with $40,000 coming from the north half of the Sunshine Coast, from the Cotw Regional District and City of Powell River, and an additional $40,000 from the south coast, so the Sunshine Coast Regional District, the town of Gibsons, and the District of Sechelt, as well as from our two nations, Sechelt and Cotw. And the shares within that are based on a population percentage. And this core funding provides us consistency and stability to base our operations on. And then we use that base as a springboard to manage the municipal and regional district tax, also known as the 2% MRDT. We manage that program for our region and create programs and partnership opportunities for local tourism businesses. And along with these three primary pillars, we pursue other funding opportunities in the way of grants. And one specific note I wanted to make was that in late 2018, the province changed the MRDT legislation to include short-term rentals as collectors of the MRDT. Previously, it was only levied on larger accommodations with 4 or more room units, such as hotels and motels. That money was also allowed through this change in legislation to be used not only on destination marketing, as it traditionally had been, but also for affordable housing initiatives. And as a result, we created a first of its kind in the province cross-government collaboration agreement to send the majority of those short-term rental revenues through the MRDT program back to local government for use on their affordable workforce housing initiatives. And in 2021, we sent approximately $86,000 to the Cotw Regional District for their affordable housing plan via PRESS, which is the amount collected in all of 2019 and 2020. And we expect to send another $80,000 to $90,000 this spring based on the collections from 2021. So within our budget, we run three primary programs: one for destination marketing, a second for visitor services, and a third for destination management and development. And as it relates to our budget, here you can see each category as a percentage spend of our budget from 2021. And as noted, the money for workforce housing is held aside and annual disbursements is not included in our regular operating budget. It's also important to note that the destination development expense category, which you can see here in yellow, is going to vary widely from year to year, as it's almost entirely based on grant funding. We'll talk more about our work in this category in a moment, but I just wanted to point that out as it relates to our overall budget. So how are things going? This graph shows accommodation room revenues for the past 6 years. And in this particular graph, it's only showing the traditional accommodation properties like hotels and motels and resorts. It does not include short-term rentals in this graph. You can see that despite no major new hotel developments, revenues were growing steadily pre-pandemic. And then while the pandemic did hit hard in 2020, our region recovered and actually overtook pre-pandemic levels by more than 20% in 2021, reaching almost $25 million of room revenues for the Sunshine Coast and Cotw region. And now with the short-term rentals also collecting the MRDT, we have some new data to add to the mix, which you can see here added to that same graph, but in green. And there were definitely short-term rental revenues prior to 2019, but we just don't have that data because MRDT wasn't collected on those properties at that time. And that's how we get this data. You can see now that with both traditional and short-term rentals included, the room revenues for our region are just shy of $40 million annually. And while these numbers do suggest impressive growth for our region and our industry, we know that as Sunshine Coast Tourism, our work's really only just begun. It's more important than ever that we as an association are continuing to drive both seasonal and geographic dispersion in our region. That supports a high quality visitor experience, and we have to work to manage the destination for the benefit of our residents and our visitors. So I'll share with you a brief highlight from our marketing and destination development programs. Our destination marketing is truly focused on winter and shoulder season efforts, as we said, that seasonal dispersion piece. So we want to encourage visitors to responsibly explore the area when and where we need them. Our most recent campaign invites visitors under the slogan, "It's time to shine." It reminds them that the Sunshine Coast brings out our inner well-being by connecting with nature, our exceptional culinary and cultural experiences, and highlights the benefits of traveling locally to a mostly lower mainland and Vancouver Island audience. This campaign's still in market, but we do have results from the first phase one portion of the campaign, which measured results from mid-January to mid-February, so about a month period of the campaign. And we found that during that time, the campaign generated over 2.6 million impressions, 13,000 visits to our destination website, and 935 verified visits to the Sunshine Coast. And so a verified visit is when several criteria are met, but basically somebody who lives in our target region, so the Lower Mainland or Vancouver Island, clicked on one of our ads and has location tracking turned on their cell phone and then physically makes their way to the Sunshine Coast during the period that we were measuring. So it doesn't count locals, it doesn't count people who maybe saw our ad and traveled but didn't actually click on the ad, and it doesn't track people that don't have location services turned on. And we also have to have a minimum length of stay so that we're not tracking things like BC Ferries employees that are going back and forth and could skew the results. So based on those 935 verified visits, we have some visitor spending data from Destination BC, and we can estimate the impact to our local economy from these visits from our campaign. So if we assume an average 2-night stay and that the average British Columbia traveler spends approximately $341 per day on their trip, we can comfortably assume visitor spending in the region totaled more than $637,000 as a result of our phase one campaign alone. And with a campaign budget of $26,000, this is a return of 24 to 1 on our marketing investment. So we're very pleased with these results and happy to see travelers visiting in January and February when we need to boost the local economy the most. So this is seasonal dispersion at work. And finally, I'll give you a brief update on our destination development programs. Our board and staff have recognized the need for many years now to focus more on destination development and management. This is truly about the supply side of the destination equation. Our marketing has always been about generating demand, and that's going very well. But the supply side just means that we're now looking at the destination more holistically to ensure our success both now and far into the future. We are pleased to receive grant funding through Island Coastal Economic Trust to fund a position, and we were able to hire our former executive director and Powell River resident, Paul Kamen, in this role. And to share a few highlights of what we have achieved through this role on our team over the past year, we've been able to secure over $500,000 in grant funding for tourism development, including new signage, trail improvements, and active transportation planning. We've also worked to support other organizations to the tune of just shy of $300,000 and still counting for other organizations, including the successful SAREP program, the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program grants that came in for some of our local partners. And with many more grant opportunities identified, we now have the capacity to make sure that the Sunshine Coast is getting its fair share of these provincial and federal grants. And to ensure effective consultation and transparency on this process, we partnered with Destination BC to create a local destination management council. This is a cross-section of residents, industry, government, and other organizations that meet regularly to share progress, perspectives, and gather input on ongoing efforts as they relate to destination development. And one other important project that I wanted to share with you that you can see on my screen. Last year, we launched the Sustainable Sunshine Coast Initiative that works to both attract and educate respectful visitors with sustainability awareness messages related to key issues such as water conservation, wildfires, wildlife, green transportation, and more. The campaign also works to support our local tourism businesses to help them reduce their impacts and build more sustainable operations. So I know that's a lot in a short period of time, but I'd like to thank the City of Powell River again for your ongoing support. I've put my contact details there on the screen, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Wow, thank you very much. Yes, lots of detail. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you so much. When you said your funding comes basically 40 from the north and 40 from the south, but it was also population based. So the population of Cotw area is the same as the population of the lower Sunshine Coast?
I believe when we originally set those numbers a few years ago, they were actually quite similar, but now it is skewed slightly. There is, I think, about 30,000 on the southern Sunshine Coast and between, and I'm sorry if I don't have the number off the top of my head, but between 20 and 25 for the northern Sunshine Coast.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Palm?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Ms. Wise, thank you for your presentation. It was very thorough, and we haven't seen anything quite like this in a number of years to this extent. Was this something that you did personally, or did you have a consultant make this presentation up on screen?
Oh, no, I made it myself. Thank you.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
So I have to ask, and that's for our hard-earned tax dollars that our citizens are putting in. I think we had a previous presentation that outlined the amount of revenue that was being generated from the hotel 2% charge that's come into effect. And now you're also telling us that we are tapping into small rentals. Is that also correct?
That's correct.
So at the time when we were just dealing with hotels, your budget went up substantially. Do you have any figure that you could share with us in terms of your overall revenue generation recently?
So our total revenues for 2021 outside of grant funding. So again, those are kind of on a specific project basis. But from the MRDT specifically. Prior to the pandemic, we were seeing about $350,000 a year, and in 2021, that number was just shy of $500,000.
And I have to ask, seeing the grant that you received for $500,000, is that on top of the $500,000 you received in revenue from elsewhere?
Yes, that's correct. And that grant funding is allocated for some very specific projects. So it's not supporting our marketing or our general operations.
Is that primarily aimed at capital projects?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. I was also quite impressed by the increase in revenue thanks to the MRDT addition. And I, like Councillor Plum, in previous reports, I seem to remember focus very much on promotion, basically, of the area, tourism promotion. But this now, along with your WaterWise or whatever that program was, seems to be now drifting into or encompassing elements of economic development and conservation. And I appreciated you touching on those. But I wonder if you have a little more detail in terms of, like, is this visitor services or business? How would you see this extra money rolling out to the benefit of the industry as a whole and the area? Like, is that a question you can answer specifically? Have you developed any new programs like to utilize this new revenue?
So the new revenue being the increase in MRDT revenues, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, it looks like a, a fairly significant increase to me, if I can judge by the bar graph.
Yeah. So as mentioned in 2019, our MRDT revenues were about $350,000, and now they're closer to $500,000. Plus, then there's the additional revenues from the short-term rentals, but the majority of those funds go back to each regional district for the affordable housing initiatives. So because we're not, as Sunshine Coast Tourism, we're not affordable housing experts. We deferred to the regional districts to spend that funding, and so the program was applied to through press for the northern Sunshine Coast, and so actually their annual report is due at the end of next month. So I'll be very curious to see how all that planned. All their work for the last year, what they were able to do and achieve. And as far as the increase in our general budgets for marketing, we've really worked to increase the scope of our campaigns and to reach a broader audience, but to also increase that messaging. And so, because we do, pretty complicated marketing campaigns in terms of there's multiple tactics involved. So it's not just putting out paid advertisements and publications, but we're extremely active through social media and digital campaigns and creating video content and website articles, and we host media. And it's become really apparent to us that we have a responsibility to not only attract visitors for economic benefit, but also to educate those visitors before they arrive. And so helping them understand, for example, when there are fire bans and what they need to know about that. They may be traveling from an area that is not a concern, and so it's not natural to them to think, oh, maybe I can't just start up my campfire kind of thing. And so there is a lot of visitor education that we try to put forth through our channels, and we think that helps, all of our communities. We never want to see visitors engaging in behavior that is detracting from making our region a beautiful place to live and to visit.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I said MRDT, but I did mean the increase from short-term rentals, which that was on top of the MRDT. I understand that. But that's very encouraging, and maybe you can let us know when you get that information from the regional district about the reporting that you were referring to. And that's very interesting that some of that money is going back into affordable housing. And the other programs, it's really evolution. Pretty exciting of what you're doing. So unless there's any other questions or comments from council, Councillor Elliott.
So I just wanted to, I think you told us, but I might have missed it. What is the percentage that goes back to affordable housing, and what was the amount that was transferred over to the Cotw region? I think it was, you said 80 something?
Yeah, so what we've done since that money began, like the short-term rentals started collecting that from their guests when their guests would stay with them, and they remit it to the province along with PST. And then once it's collected, then a couple months goes by and the Ministry of Finance sends it back to Sunshine Coast Tourism. And so for that money that's specific for the short-term rentals, we believe the total sum that was collected, that we take 60% of it and divide that 60% evenly back to each of the two regional districts. So an even split, 50-50, but really it's like 30% and 30%, if that makes sense. And so that 60% split for all the total money collected in 2019 and 2020 combined was about $86,000 and some change. And the amount of revenues collected has grown so much that for the amount that was collected in 2021 as a single year will be closer to $90,000, so more than the two previous years combined. And so there'll be about $90,000 for each regional district that will disperse later this spring.
Thank you.
Councillor Dowd.
Yeah, just want to say thank you for coming out and letting everybody know what you're doing and promoting the area. And I understand that the programs like the water conservation program are meant to be marketing issues to attract people and demonstrate the sustainability of the tourism industry along with cultural activities and everything. So it's all part of the tourism attraction program that you've got going. And listening to the questions around the table, I'm going to suggest that perhaps next time you might include the financial statements, the most recent ones for Sunshine Coast Tourism. I know we've got those recently separately, but I think if they came together, that might help explain where all the money goes and what it's all doing. But thanks for doing a good job and attracting tourists up here during a very difficult time.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I will definitely make a note to package our financials together next time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Wise. Impressive and detail-filled report. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So on to 3.2, Mr. Dean Gerhardt, Committee of Concerned Citizens for a Community Voice on a potential name change to the City of Fall River. Mr. Gerhardt.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Mayor Formosa, Committee Chair, members of Council. I am here representing a group of concerned citizens, and I'm not doing a presentation. I'd just like to ask some questions, if that's possible. And one is the survey that was completed. When I was here a little over 3 weeks ago, it was indicated that we would kind of get the results from that right quickly after the survey closed, which was the 25th of last month, I believe. Is there anything coming forward on that?
Can one of our committee members or CEO, Councillor Hathaway?
Respond to that. The survey was, my understanding was that the survey was going to be used to create the public engagement, and there weren't going to really be any per se results, that they were just using the input that came on the survey to create further information to the public. So we as committee members haven't received any report or anything on the public or on the survey, so I don't know that there's going to be any specific report coming out. Maybe the other two members might have something more, but that's my understanding.
Sure. I'm a non-voting member of that committee. I'm an ex officio, but yeah, the way we understood it, and I don't think it was clear enough. You know, the whole launching of this thing was sort of haphazard and not very clear, but all the work to date has been basic. There we go. All the work to date has basically been for the contractors to gather information to create the public input process and venues that are coming to the community. So maybe the CAO might recall what was presented at our last JWG committee, because they did sort of do an overview of the launching, which has now started, of the public engagements. But I understand it the same way Councillor Hathaway does, that that was there as a tool to gather information to put towards creating the public engagement program. And there's going to be a number of them. They're going to be going on for quite some time, and there'll be different venues and different topics. CAO, do you recall it any different?
No, that's correct, Your Worship, and some of the info is available on the city's website under the engagement page. That's the same information that was available at the first session and that the working group reviewed as well to date. And it was to be used for rolling out the subsequent engagement.
Councillor Elliott and then Councillor Dowd.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean, for the question. And as mentioned before, the survey was intended to get as many ideas as possible. The results were kind of summed up and put out on the webpage, and they're part of the information that's presented at the public meetings. And there were, I think it was close to 3,800 respondents. And you and others know there's some limitations on determining if some of those might have been repeat or not. And they summed up and explained what the range of input that was received, and how we use that information to develop subsequent engagement efforts. We also used the information to determine if there were some folks in the community that we weren't reaching, and if we might need to develop something specialized just to reach those people. The survey was never intended as a vote or to determine levels of support for one way or another, but rather to gather information on how best to conduct engagement within our community and carry out this conversation. Thanks.
Councillor Dowd.
Just my understanding of the engagement process was there was a survey. There was a report to council that mapped it all out with diagrams and timelines. The committee made it clear that the timelines might change over a period of time, but the report back from the engagement that the committee talked about in their presentation was to have a report back to council sometime towards the end of June or early July. And the engagement is continuing, and I encourage everybody to participate.
Councillor Palm.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to follow up on that, those comments, that is my recollection as well, Councillor Dowd, that during that presentation there were specific timelines attached that I thought we were working from, but I keep hearing the timeline being stretched or changed, and I think the question that Mr. Gerhard is asking for his group is pertinent, especially in light that they're using the word referendum, because there are timelines associated with such, as we all know. And if we don't meet certain timelines, the referendum question is out the window. So on the initial diagram that we saw, there was this group, the working group was supposed to bring back some type of report to council by, I think it was, end of June. And then council could decide what to do with that, and you could still get your direction by mid-July prior to the summer hiatus for any further development. So I'm hoping that that's still the plan. I'm not sure it is, but that is my hope. Thank you, Chair.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Gerhard?
Almost.
Do you have more questions too?
No, it's just that we were led to believe that there would be information released just right after the survey closed, or as close as it could. But we'll leave that one alone for the time being. The second thing I'd like to ask, excuse me, is that our group of people who are working on the petition side of things have applied to put the petition both at the rec complex, the library, and City Hall. And in each of those three cases, we were told that only council could give permission to do that. So I guess I'm asking formally of council is, can we have permission to put our petition at the rec complex, the library, and City Hall?
Councillor Hathaway.
Thanks. What I
And
suggest,
Councillor
this is coming up on our agenda, not the petitions, but this subject is coming up on our agenda because we're committee, we're not council here, on Thursday. So maybe we could ask staff to add that to the agenda, and we could have a motion as to whether, if it comes from us, then we can say yay or nay for those two locations.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, in all my years here in government, we've never really had anybody ask us to sit on. In all my years here in government, I don't recall us ever being asked to give permission to any group to do petitions on the city property. They're usually in the mall or at different grocery stores and such. So I'm not sure what that would look like and what kind of doors we'd be opening on that whole issue. I'd probably look to staff for some thoughts on such a thing, because I've never really heard about that. Yeah.
Library. There was a petition at the library. I can't remember what it was about, but they've been located there, I think.
At the library.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm out of order.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So you will
so-
get back to us if you do approve? Or don't approve?
Tune in Thursday.
Okay. The next question would be, when will residents of Powell River have an opportunity in an open forum to speak and ask questions about the possible name change.
Councillor Hathaway, and then Councillor Elliott.
Thanks. My understanding of the route that the committee is going is never. I've spoken to the contractor and said, in my mind, this is unacceptable. I attended the first open house, and well done. I mean, they had information tables there and all kinds of stuff for people to read, and but it was a one-way street, in my opinion. There wasn't opportunity for input, and when I asked, they said they'd think about it. We haven't had a meeting since then, so I haven't had an opportunity to express my opinion because we're directing people to go to this public engagement, and then they're being told, no, you can't speak. In my mind, that's clearly wrong, and I want to correct that. So, we will be having another, is it this Friday or next? This Friday we will be having a meeting, so I'll be bringing that topic up. And hopefully we can change how the public engagement process is run, because right now it's unfair in my opinion. Thanks.
Well, I would say that there is no public engagement at the moment.
Right.
Councillor Elliott, and then Mayor. You're muted, Cindy.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So my interpretation is quite a bit different than Councillor Hathaway's. We are developing an engagement process that was not fully defined from beginning to end. We started with a survey. We used the survey to develop some public sessions that were focused on education. We're still developing what will happen in the future, and we haven't figured it out yet. We're developing it by joint committees, so sometimes the speed with which we roll stuff out is not as fast as what the public is expecting. The input for wanting the ability to do a public speaking on, as you say, Dean Gearhart, to an audience would be something that would naturally occur when things come back to council. So even if we don't develop a specific session for that, which I'm not saying we will or we won't, because it might happen, or maybe we won't be able to as a joint committee decide to do that, but anything that comes back to council will be open to the public. So my suggestion is allow us to roll out the public engagement, be a little bit patient because we're not finished yet, provide your input that that's what you're looking for. The committee can address that when they receive that input, and perhaps we will include that in our development of future sessions. If it doesn't happen and we move all of the information back to council, council will definitely have it on their agenda. And of course, all of those are open to the public. And so I'm not saying it will or it won't. I'm saying the input has been heard, and we haven't responded to that input yet, so I don't know what will become of it. But that's how things happen when you're on a committee, is I don't get to decide what the committee will decide. I know that I'm in favor of having a fulsome discussion, and what we started with is educating kinds of information sharing. And I think we can move from there into different types of conversations and different types of sessions, but they're not developed yet.
Mr. Garrett?
I've got comment.
Oh, sorry, Mayor.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I think my comments are going to be sort of between the two other councillors. At the last meeting, there was discussion about how we could interact, and if elders were going to be, we were having discussions with, actually let me give one example of the seniors, if they had a luncheon and possibly getting an invitation, and that we were chatting with the one elder that's on our committee at the possibility of some elders and such, and I said if that was the case, I would love to go to that luncheon, seeing as how I'm probably considered a senior now. I'm 64, I'll be 65 this year, so that makes me eligible to go to the seniors luncheon. And nonetheless, so also I was speaking with the CAO this morning, and we had this exact discussion, exactly. And, you know, we just cannot see how we can have a program like this and not have an interaction with the public. It just can't I just can't see how that would be the case. So as Councillor Elliott is saying, we're developing as we go different venues and different types of programs, and I anticipate that we will see a number of them where there will be an opportunity for people to be heard and to ask questions and questions to be asked back and forth. I see that happening. So it was said here today, it's all a process. As Councillor Palm said, we were told originally it would be here and wrapped up by June or July. I don't see if it can be wrapped up that quickly, but because there's a lot to talk about, and it's a big subject. But I agree, we need interaction with our public. Thank you.
Mr. CAO.
Just to give council and the public some confidence, there will be opportunities for the public to speak at events. That's the plan. The dates haven't been set yet. The consultants are still working on that. You can look to the website and there'll be more ads rolling out soon on what those dates will be, but for sure there will be opportunities for the public to engage and speak at events.
Thank you. Councillor Dutt.
Yeah, just trying to figure out what to say here. So we've heard answers to your questions from the 3 council members that are on the working group that's working towards getting this consultation done about the potential name change. We're hearing them at the same time. The rest of council is hearing those answers at the same time that you are. And all I want to say is that as a member of council, I think it's important that if we're going to do an entire engagement, that there be a point where people get to get up and share their views and listen to other people's views and get it all out in the open and have a fair and open discussion. So I think we will get to that. As has been said, I've said and others have said that this is an unfolding process. It's not over yet. It's at the beginning stages, and there will be plenty of time to get busy and talk about everybody's concerns.
Mr. Gerhardt.
I encourage council to consider that highly, because there's an awful lot of people that would like to have their say on this issue. And final note, just to share information, our petition will reach 1,500 names this weekend, and that was kind of our goal, but now we're setting the standards a lot higher, and we're going to keep going. So I'll just share that information with you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gerhardt. Okay, seeing no other hands up, maybe I will just invite any of us who are here only for what has been part of our meeting to this point. I'll invite anybody to leave who would like to. We can recess for a few moments before we go on to our very exciting planning reports that I'm looking forward to greatly.
Exciting stuff in that.
Absolutely.
There's a
Mics are on again whenever you're ready, Sheriff. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. We'll just wait a minute. Ms. Pukish, we'll just hang on a half a sec. Thanks very much. Okay. So, zoning amendment 117-5011 Madison Avenue Planner Senior Planner.
Thank you very much for having me here this afternoon. I'm pleased to be presenting a zoning amendment application on behalf of the property owner for 5011 Madsen Avenue. The property is located on the west side of Manson Avenue, one property north of the intersection with Abbotsford Street in Westview. The property has a land use designation under the official community plan of urban residential low density. It's currently zoned R2, which is our single and two family residential zone. It has a lot area of just over 1,500 square meters in size. You can see from this photograph that it's an irregularly shaped parcel that has an existing single-family home on it dating back to the 1930s that fronts Manson Avenue. And then the property takes quite a dog leg to the south and has quite a significant, almost 100 feet of frontage on Abbotsford Street. The property owner wishes to subdivide the property to create two new residential lots, both of which that would have frontage on Abbotsford Street. The current R2 zoning with a minimum parcel size of 730 square meters would only allow for the subdivision of one new parcel off the back. So the applicant has made an application to the city to change the zoning from R2 to CD4, the Comprehensive Development for Residential Small Lot zoning that would allow them to create two new lots. The property is located along the arterial route of Manson Avenue that has established bike lanes and transit routes. Edge Hill Elementary can be seen on the far right of this photograph, so within walking distance of the property. And if you look to the top left corner of this photo, about 250 meters away, that's the southern portion of what is the Edge Hill Crescent Comprehensive Development subdivision, which when it's fully built out will be upwards of 80 residential lots, all zoned CD4. So the largest example of intensive residential development within the city limits. The property is in close proximity to the Joyce Avenue commercial corridor, as well as to civic facilities such as the library, the hospital, and the recreation complex. You can see from the image that the property is in a strategic location in central Westview and has supportive policies in the SOCP with respect to densification by way of infill. So attached to the staff report for council's consideration is a draft amendment bylaw. And in keeping with standard practice where the zoning being sought is to increase the density, recommendation from staff is that a voluntary community amenity contribution to the city's Affordable Housing Reserve Fund also be a condition of this council. Oh, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions or comments, Mayor?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Ghosh. You were mentioning something about an 80-lot subdivision. My mind's going blank. I'm not aware of that. And that's in that back corner where we saw sort of the, yeah, is that the, oh. Okay.
Through the chair, that image is just to point out its close proximity to Edge Hill Crescent.
Right.
And that is going to be over, I believe, 5 phases, upwards of 80 residential lots, all zone CD4.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Dowd, and then Councillor Elliott.
Thanks. You know, this is preliminary. Just looking at the appendixes in the report, I don't see a sketch of the possible subdivision of that property to create these small lots. And I'm kind of assuming those would be facing on Abbotsford Street. And I wonder if anybody's measured it out and sketched it out to see if you can do that without having any dogleg kind of lots or panhandle lots being part of that.
Through the chair, thanks very much for the question. Yes, I've been working with the applicant to sketch out the possibility to determine both whether or not 2 lots, if zone CD4 would be possible, as well as which subtype of CD4, because there are 3 subtype zones in CD4, RS1, 2, and 3 that all support different densities and have different minimum lot sizes. So rezoning this parcel to CD4 also gives the existing single-family home on it a reduced rear yard setback of only 5.5 meters versus 7.5. So if the applicant was successful in achieving a zoning, he would then move on to have the property fully surveyed, which would clearly establish the minimum rear setback to the existing home and the actual final lot dimensions of the two lots that he could create fronting Abbotsford Street.
Okay. The point I'm actually trying to make is to have those lots sketched out in some kind of reasonable way might make it easier to figure out if we want to approve the zoning or not. If they can fit in there, it would be easier to approve the zoning. That's what I'm saying.
Through the chair, subdivision is under the purview of the approving officer, not of council, and so a zoning change would give the property owner the option to create those two lots, which we've worked out with them through preliminary discussions. But a zoning itself just speaks to general density, so we generally wouldn't ask the property owner to commit to a specific subdivision layout before he'd achieved his zoning.
Okay.
Councillor Elliott?
Thank you. So the intersection that's closest to that, Manson and Abbotsford, is where all the children go to get to that school. And I just had a question around the capacity for Abbotsford to have additional traffic and the safety of all the kids that are, it's already a complicated intersection that is struggles to be safe for the kids. And so my question, I guess, is the safety of children going to and from the school needs to be included in any decisions made for increasing density right in that spot. And I wondered if there'd been any thought by anybody about that and what the thoughts from staff for that are.
Through the chair, thanks very much. Planning staff did refer this application out to the Engineering Services Department for some feedback. They didn't provide us with any specific comments that would have any impact on the zoning amendment or suggest any particular reconfiguration to the intersection or any study that would be related based on the potential addition of 2 more residential lots at this location. So,
I've got a question. It seems obvious, but new lots would probably be fronted onto Abbotsford Street, would they not?
that is correct, yes.
And I didn't check numbers either, because it didn't occur to me that this could possibly be divided into more than 2 lots, but has that been considered in this for CD4, the smallest designation?
Oh, thanks very much for that question, Chair. No, there isn't the potential to create more than 2 additional rear lots off the bat, not based upon the minimum lot width and depth and lot area that's required of the zoning.
Thank you. Great. Well, this reminds me of a lot of other rezonings to CD4 that we've done, actually, and I'm personally happy to see us move in that direction. Seeing no other questions or comments, we'll go on to the next agenda item. Zoning amendment.
Yeah, they need a,
Chair,
Oh, sorry.
just to confirm, this is going to be referred to May 5th council.
council.
Council, we don't need a motion for that, do we? By unanimous consent. Thank you very much, Ms. Prakash. 5.2, zoning amendment 112, vacant Algoma Aegis Builders Limited, Director of Planning Services, Mr. Gao, and I see Councillor Leishman's hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I will declare a conflict as this development is my employer. So I'll turn my camera off.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you very much. I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
I'm going to share my screen with you now. It's been a while since I've done this, so bear with me. This looks like the right one. Please tell me if you see Schedule 8, your report. Is that what you're looking at? Great. So this is a rezoning for a property located along Algoma Avenue, and it is Aegis Builders that has put in this application. And this is the second staff report linked to this application. It And really the purpose of this report is to provide an opportunity to consider comments received during the early community consultation period. And before I get to some of the written notices or written submissions we received, I just want to give you a bit of background in terms of the application. On the screen, you can see what is Appendix B to your staff report. As I mentioned, it is Algoma Avenue that the vacant property is located along. It is a small property. It has frontage along Algoma with access to Marine via easement. Property is currently zoned R2, which is our single and two family residential zone, and the owner has applied to rezone it to RM4, which is a multifamily zone, referred to as multiple family residential 4, to facilitate the development of a small apartment building. The applicant envisions a 3-story building that would house 6 two-bedroom units, and the units would range between 750 and 800 square feet. The building has been designed as a 2-story building along Algoma Avenue and a 3-story building on the facade that faces towards the ocean. And based on the conceptual plans provided, and I've got an image here for you. And this one just shows I'll call it the water side, and this is the 3-story side. But based on the conceptual plans, the height above average grade along Algoma will be about 7 meters. And as I pointed out in the report, because the RM4 zone allows a maximum height of 13.5 meters, a restrictive covenant has been recommended as a subject condition to zoning approval that would limit the height above average grade to 8.5 meters, which is the same maximum height as the current zoning of the property, the R2 zone. Moving on to engagement. So following first reading of the amendment bylaw and council's direction, staff sent a written notice by mail out to inform owners and occupiers of property within 100 meters of the subject lands about the proposal. Mail out was sent out on Friday the 18th of this year and went to 110 owners and occupiers of property. On that same day, staff launched a Participate Powell River engagement page that included links to staff reports and contact information to inform the community about the proposal, as well as to provide an avenue to ask questions of staff. Engagement on the engagement page, Participate Powell River, included 12 initial views and 6 situations where users clicked on something such as a link to download the staff report. During the early engagement period, 3 written submissions were received, including one from the strata of Harborview Place, which is the multifamily development immediately east of the subject property across Algoma. And these written submissions are attached to my report as Appendix H. I've reviewed the correspondence and I would summarize the concerns raised as related to densification. We're talking about the addition of people, the addition of cars, the addition of parking. When the authors speak to, as I said, additional traffic, inadequate parking, building height, and the possible loss of views as being reasons for council to consider denying the application. These concerns have merit. There's always going to be impacts to someone as our community changes, or in this case grows. And you, council, have the unenviable task of weighing these concerns against the benefit that developments like this offer. And in this case, these are 6 new rental apartments with rental tenure secured for over 25 years. Development in the core close to existing services, commercial and recreational amenities, and transit routes. It's this type of development that enhances livability, and it's also this type of development that will activate the city's urban core. And then lastly, the dramatic increase to the taxes per acre collected if approved. So in terms of next steps, I recommend council give the amendment bylaw second reading and direct staff to schedule a public hearing. And I just want to highlight that the subject conditions remained unchanged between the first report and the second report. That is all that I have to present. I'm here for you, should you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gao. Council, any questions? Councillor Elliott.
So the letter from the concerned citizen talks about the need for traffic studies in that area. Did you have any comment on that?
You know, I think we are, through the chair, I mean, obviously traffic and safety is a huge concern. I know that that corner is a blind corner. Is there an opportunity through a development and building permit process to look at adding mechanisms that would help? You know, I think the letter spoke to people driving over the center line. Well, is there an opportunity for us to include improvements to that road? You know, whether it's this development or whether it's just having safety in our community, is this a corner that we should look at? This isn't the first time that people have said it's a challenging corner. Please keep in mind that the vast majority of people in Harborview Place who park their cars there enter and exit through Algoma. So it's already a busy corner. It's also another avenue for people to drive up that have parked in the city-owned parking lot that is provided for people to use the commercial core of our neighborhood. So I think the question of whether this road should be looked at is absolutely valid. Is it something that should be looked at because we're talking about adding, you know, as recommended, another 3 parking stalls? I'm not sure that that's the impetus, but council could require a traffic impact study as part of a rezoning application. I guess I would say, much like my colleague did, this was referred to engineering. Engineering didn't highlight that this wasn't going to be an impact, but they also have another kick at the can. And like I say, through a building permit process, they could require a traffic impact study as per bylaw 2225.
Thanks.
Not seeing any other questions. I have a couple of questions, but they're kind of along the same lines as what you just discussed, Mr. Gao. I read the reports and the letters very carefully and noted that my name was mentioned in one of them, of those letters. And I did have a visit with a couple on the corner there, that funny bump corner, because I've known them for a long time. They're close friends. And we talked about a lot of background and speeds, road speeds, etc., considerations for changes within our municipality that are in process right now, and also our objectives to move towards more active transportation, etc. So that very intention does validate the concerns for motor traffic. So my question really was pretty much the same as Councillor Elliott's. Are there any engineering considerations that could be instituted in that area, like speed signs or anything like that? Like, I was scratching my head trying to figure out what that might be, because I can't really think of anything, and I couldn't back then either. But another question that came up so that's one question that I had in my mind, and you've almost answered that already. Another question is, from my background, my past vocational background, I'm not aware that there have been serious incidents on that street. And I'm wondering if there have been any, and if there have been any actions as a result of that. That would be my question.
Through the chair, I'm not aware of any data that we have as it relates to that particular dog leg. That is typically information that's provided to us from engineering as part of a referral. If in fact we know there's an intersection that has had issues in the past. But like I say, there is the opportunity for engineering to require a traffic impact study at time of building permit if it's deemed that one would be valuable. I would urge you to consider much more broadly the impact of safety as you, as a council, make decisions about safety in our community, as opposed to on developments on a one-off basis. And the point I'm making there is, you know, the 12 units of, or 15 units of Harborview Place are adding a lot more volume to that particular corner than any development that's being proposed would. And that's in place. Those, you know, go by and see how many cars park in that back area right now. So we know that there's a lot of activity out there already, and I would be the last person to suggest that we don't want to make improvements to safety, but I do think it's something we want to do more broadly and not just a one-off case by case as a development comes forward. Because what we may do is put the wrong message out there to our development community that, you know, we aren't interested in seeing this type of development. And this development in particular hits on a number of positive aspects in terms of our policy from the Sustainable Official Community Plan and the Integrated Community Sustainability Plan. And so I'd be disappointed if the message that was sent away was due to the moderate increase of traffic, we are going to question whether this is the right type of activity to be seeing in our downtown core.
Thank you, Mr. Gao, and I certainly do concur with your view, and as one who engages in active transportation as much as possible, in other words, on my bicycle, and not in my car, I do very much appreciate this developer for moving in the direction of changing assumptions, that are, you know, that our planning department and our community is heading in necessarily for all sorts of reasons that are well defined in various big policy documents that we have. So thank you very much for this. It doesn't seem to be a big change from, or there's not a whole lot of new news. There's concern about traffic. That's very clear. Councillor Elliott.
It just occurred to me that upgrades to safety on our existing roads might be eligible for funding from the development fees that we set aside for upgrading stuff for future growth. I'm not using the DO something or other. Is that something that could be considered for an intersection like that?
Through the chair, are you referring to the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund? Or
no.
Or DCCs? You're thinking of DCCs?
Yes. DCCs.
Yeah, so to be eligible for DCCs, it needs to be a DCC project identified in our DCC bylaws. So I don't believe this particular intersection has been identified, and it would actually be new development, so new road, new sidewalk, or new infrastructure. I do think, and you know, there's been some really positive grants that the city's received over the last little while related to Vision Zero, which is entirely about safety for pedestrian and other active transportation users. And it's one that I think, I think with working with our colleagues in engineering to identify what the impact has been at this particular stretch of our roadways, and whether this is perceived or if this is, in fact, there's some data to support it. Vision Zero, which is a provincial funding through the Ministry of Transportation, and even ICBC has funds to improve these areas where we know that there's impacts, especially to active transportation users. So it's one that we could definitely highlight, and my colleague, Ms. Lakinova, has been really out front in terms of working with Vision Zero, and has been working with a couple of schools in the region to help improve active transportation in and around the schools. So I will definitely bring this back to Ms. Lakinova and see if this is something that she can put in the back burner for a future opportunity.
Thank you.
Councillor Dowd.
I'm not going to spend a long time talking about it, but when we're looking at traffic safety in all of the places we're talking about, maybe it's time to start getting serious about reducing the speed limit to 40 or 30 kilometers an hour on the back streets, not the main roads, but these kind of places where there's difficult corners and narrow streets. Maybe reducing the speed limit might be the way to contribute to safety.
Terrific. Seeing no other questions or comments, perhaps we'll go on to, let's see, 5.3, development variance permit to, to council.
To council, May the 5th.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. To council by unanimous consent. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. 5.3, development variance permit 2650 Saanich, Director of Infrastructure Services. Mr. Burdick.
Thank you, Chair, Your Worship, members of council. So this report's been prepared for council to consider development variance permit application to vary the requirements to construct a road fronting the subject property from the city's infrastructure design and construction bylaw 2225. The applicant does not wish to construct the road leading to the property as outlined in our preliminary works and services review. The applicant stated that the work was not required to be completed when the parcel that fronts Furness was subdivided originally in 2006-2007. There was no requirement to construct the roadway, although there was road dedication in place. So our infrastructure design bylaw requires works and services to be fully completed on all highways across, leading to, flanking, and fronting the subject land. So engineering is requiring that road construction approximately 4.5 meters by 18.5 meters long with an asphalt thickness of 50 mils would have to be constructed. There's no additional requirement for curbing due to the matching of the adjacent level of service in that area. So our recommendation is not to allow the variance, but ultimately the decision comes to council.
Thank you, Mr. Burdick. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Dowd?
Yeah, I've driven up and taken a look at that, and this is kind of a dead-end street as it is right now, and it's going to be extended out. I'm just wondering if this is short enough that it wouldn't normally be required to have a cul-de-sac or a turnaround for garbage trucks and service vehicles. Is it that short, or has it just been there so long that we wouldn't be requiring that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's, in our vision, it wouldn't be required. We, with the garbage trucks, they would come to the end of the road, but beyond that, we don't see the need for a turnaround there.
Okay. And it looks to me as if the whole road was constructed, it would be on top of the building in that adjacent lot.
Yes, and the 4.5 meters that we are requiring would not encroach onto that adjacent property as some of the roadway to the north of it actually does. It encroaches on private property.
Okay, thanks. That's the questions I had.
Mayor?
Yeah, so maybe help me, Mr. Burdick. I'm, sort of going back and forth here. What is the subject property hoping to do here? They're subdividing, they're building, what's going on? I don't know why I can't see it here, but.
They just want to build a building permit, so they applied for preliminary works and services to see what was missing in that area. So
there's no home there?
There's no home on that parcel.
And the parcel that they're looking at is, I can see the road that's in question, but I can't see which even parcel we're dealing with. We've got Appendix A, so is it the 108, is it?
It's the,
or is it the 111?
Road where you see, yeah, 111. It's the area to the south of the yellow shaded area in your.
Yeah, it's the 111 street or lot.
Yeah, actually, that's a contour, but it is that section to the.
That's the section.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see why you're asking for that. Thank you.
Are there any, any other questions? Councillor Elliott.
So just so I understand, they want to build a building on 111 and they don't want to pave the access to it? Is that what they're asking to not do?
That's correct. The pavement ends at the north end of that yellow shaded area in your report.
And they just want it to be gravel instead of paved, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Burdig, you mentioned that there was access from Furness to this lot, the one
No,
on
the
the lot.
original subdivision, there was a larger parcel that was accessed via Furness. So there was 2 lots taken off of the, there was a lot taken off of the Furness frontage. So there was 2 parcels on Furness, and then the smaller parcel that we're speaking of today.
So it's essentially a landlocked parcel now, except for this access that you've got highlighted
It
here.
has road dedication from Saanich that abuts the property, but not a road constructed to it, not a paved section to it. So it's not a landlocked parcel. It actually has access from Saanich.
Right. I think I see the proponent in the audience here, and I'm wondering if there's any other information that they might want to part. Usually in council meetings, do we have any problem with that here? I don't think so. Would you like to, you need to come up to the microphone, please, identify yourself, and then.
My name is Desiree Collings, and I work at Royal LePage. So I'm here today just because the buyers of Lot 1 on Saanich Avenue are my buyers. So they purchased the lot in March of 2021, and they purchased the lot here because they wanted to build a home closer to their family, that both their parents are aging. So, you know, without getting too much into their history, basically, as you were saying, that the lot was originally Lot 3 and fronted Furness. And basically, the owner at that time subdivided, and he was supposed to create a hammerhead turnaround. There was an engineering report designed, completed at that time, but it never was brought to fruition. So now when my clients came to the city to apply for a building permit, they were told that the first thing to do was order a works and services report. And in that works and services report, it was stated that yes, they need to pave the existing road, or they need to pay cash in lieu. So they did have a quote from a blacktop company locally here, and the blacktop company said that the existing pavement is not even hardy enough, if you will, to tie into. So they can't even further create the road because the road is so deteriorated. So my client's position is, if in 2006, when a lot is subdivided, if everything is supposed to be done in accordance with the city and all those conditions are supposed to be met, paving and such is to happen at that time, why is it now being required? So, you know, I just wanted to be here and basically just represent them as much as I could and kind of share that piece of information. On title, you know, there was a statutory right-of-way, which is along the property line, and then also there was a legal notation, and when, you know, we pulled the legal notation, it basically just states that the legal description may be affected by, you know, a government development variance permit. So that's just kind of the backstory there of what's happening. My clients are concerned that it wasn't done in 2006, and why is it being required to be done now? And if this is the way things need to go, there's not even existing pavement that a blacktop company can tie into. Just the road is completely deteriorated. And yeah, so thank you. I don't.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, so that makes me ask a few questions. So, you know, I find it hard when I can't see a bigger map of this area. Like, I don't know where Saanich Road is, and I don't know where all these lots are. It's, you know, it's pretty difficult. But anyway, what I do know is, my first question is, why wasn't it done in 2006? Did we get cash in lieu? Like, if that was part and parcel of the subdivision, why did we not receive A, cash in lieu, or B, make them do it? Do you have any?
No, I don't have any insight into why it was not completed at that point.
So it was to be done as part of the subdivision, but at the time, whoever was in charge never saw it happen. Okay.
That's what I've seen. I don't have any further insight on that topic.
Right. All right. Okay. I get that. So my next question is this issue with pavement. How have you went up and looked at that road?
I have not personally, no. It's a spray cap road, but our minimum standard is 50 millimeters of asphalt. And yeah, we're not asking these citizens to be responsible for the condition or the upgrade of the
rest
area
of it.
that's paved, but the extension of this section with 50 millimeters of asphalt.
Right. Would it be something that we, if we redo it, would we probably do it in chip and seal again?
That is definitely an option, yes.
Okay, so maybe we could get a variance such, if council would consider chip and seal instead of a full pavement, because we probably wouldn't do a full pavement with my experience here. We would probably chip and seal again.
Yes.
So maybe we could, save them a bit of money in that regard. I don't believe two wrongs make a right. I've done a lot of development, and I would anticipate to have put a road up there myself if I wanted to build on that lot. But I do hear the issue of, why wasn't it done when it was requested? This is not the first time I've seen something like that. I can show you many other areas in the city that you shake your head and go, why wasn't that done? But I don't think in the years that we've been here, the 14 plus years, we haven't, to the best of my knowledge, just said to one particular person, no, you don't, but the other person does need to. So I don't think we practice that type of thing here in this city, but it does make you wonder. So that would be something I could support, is downgrading that from pavement to a chip and seal to match up with what it is we would redo this road with, and if we were to redo it. And again, like I said, I haven't seen the road, but that would be sort of something I could support by downgrading it. Thanks.
Councillor Palm. Oh, sorry. Right. Councillor Palm. Councillor Hathaway had her hand up before you, and I forgot to give her.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. Yeah, this raises a few questions for me as well. I'd like to know what happened back in 2006. Really, and if that's part of the rules, why weren't they carried out? Because if they had been, this person would not now be having to develop it. So it might be our bad, I'm not sure, but I agree with the mayor, two wrongs don't make a right. And if it's BA Blacktop, which is the only company here that does blacktop, says we're not doing it because we can't tie in, well, then we're asking them to do something that might not even be possible. So, because if they're not doing it, who are you going to get?
I don't think they said they're not doing it. They didn't say that. I think they were commenting on the road in front of.
They couldn't, I thought I heard you say that they couldn't do it.
I didn't speak those words.
Okay. So, oh, you did. Okay, sorry. Okay, anyways, I heard that. And so, well, it might be an impossible task at this point, so I like the mayor's idea of downgrading it, but I'd like to get a little history on that, why we didn't do our due diligence at the time, or if there was some reason for it. But I don't like putting it on to the citizen if it's our bad, and I don't want to ask somebody to do something that's not even possible. So a little background might be helpful. Thanks.
Councillor Palm. Something to.
Mr. Chair, the mayor mentioned two wrongs don't make a right. When I look at the photo here, am I not mistaken that the building across the street is in the road right away?
Sorry.
I think these cadastral lines are wrong.
The building with the green roof is in the road right away.
No.
You're asking for half of it.
No, the green roof is wholly situated on that parcel. The yellow shaded area is in the road dedication, and that would be the entrance to the property in question.
Okay, I've got it, because when you look at the photo, you see a wide swath of you see this narrow stretch of yellow, and it looks like we're just paving half the road.
We're just not paving on private property is what we stated. We're going from the property line and going westward 4.5 meters.
Right. Okay, well, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Thank you.
I think the cadastral lines are not correct on this because they don't match up. One of them goes right down the middle of the paved section of Saanich to the west of this proposed section. And that's not unusual for our mapping systems as in my experience. So, however, I don't doubt that the yellow section here is the section being referred to. I don't doubt that that's correct. I do have a question for you, regardless of what happened 16 years ago. I've been looking for it, but I haven't found it, our plan for paving. And I'm wondering if in even the short term and the long term, what the plan might be for the rest of Saanich. I know we have a lot of plans that we're biting into extremely slowly because of the cost of paving, and we barely are keeping ahead of this. So is that relevant? The condition of the rest of Saanich, is there an intention to bring that up to expected standards by 2025?
It is on the, I guess, the near-term radar, but not necessarily on the short term, not within the next 5 years.
Okay, and I did notice, I believe, in this report that there was a condition to if not pave it right now, to require the deposit by the
cash in
the owner, so that money could go towards the necessary upgrades to match improvements when they were to be done, or is my understanding correct on that?
The cash in lieu, if they were to provide it, would be for this portion only. So the remaining funds would have to come from the city coffers, definitely.
For the rest of the road, that's understandable. If we were going to consider the suggestion that was offered here, that possibly there be a compromise and not require what is exactly required by MMCD and our 2225 bylaw, would that require another report from you, or how do we approach that?
We could do it to match the adjoining service level, and if we're to go towards a cash in lieu, because we do not do a spray chip program every year, it's dependent on, we tie it into highways work, but we could get a qualified estimator to provide that number so that they could provide that amount in cash in lieu.
And would it be fair to
lower standard?
Okay, would that be, so would the, just one more question, then I'll turn over to you, Councillor Dowd. That would be I would expect that would be according to what the slightly longer term expectations are for the repair or the maintenance of the rest of that end of Saanich there. Is that, would I be, so what I'm saying is you'd require it would be fair to require of the owner what is expected, the standard that would be expected for the rest of that road. So if it was going to be spray capped, then be okay to require that from
them, yes.
Okay, Councillor Dowd. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a couple of concerns. The first is I'd really like to know as much as we possibly could if there was a requirement to finish that road or provide a hammerhead or a cul-de-sac at some point by the planning department, and if that was required in the subdivision, why it didn't happen. And then, what we do about it, and accepting a lower standard for the road, would save the owner some money, but the street becomes a city street. And then the taxpayers of the city are responsible for keeping it up and paying for the maintenance and doing the upgrading as time goes on. So, I'm inclined to accept the recommendation in the report, but I'd like to know before we do that what the history was there, if there was a requirement that the road be extended and finished in the subdivision, or where we are.
If council wishes, we could delve into the history and see if we can extract some solid reasoning. At this time, I do not have that information.
It would answer the big question for me.
Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm sure, the director can go back and look through all the records and see if he can find out what happened. I mean, we would like to know. I mean, I said my bit about that. But I just want to make a comment here on Councillor Dout's comment accepting a lower standard. I know that the city has 2 levels of road. It has the main roads, which are the basic roads that new subdivisions create and our main highways are done within. And then there's many other streets in the city, many side streets that are chip and seal. And I think it would be unfair to make this person put in an MMCD standard that when the city does go to do this Saanich Road, it's going to very, very, very likely put in chip and seal. Now, am I correct in that assumption, Mr. Burdick, or would you think?
It would definitely be a good candidate to put chip and seal just because of the low volume of traffic in that area.
Right, and as we've been trying to extend our monies, I mean, even the upgrade that we did on that major portion between Quality Foods Mall down along Abbotsford to Alberni, where we did a bit of an upgrade, that the Fred McLeod Street, Harvey. Remember that? Harvey. We upgraded that with chip and seal, didn't we? Lately?
I can't say with 100% certainty.
Yeah, I think it was. We gave it a touch-up.
It was chip and seal when
right.
we first program.
Yeah, and this would be a less significant road to that. So I would almost, bet it would be a chip and seal road. So I would hate to have to make them do an MMCD road when the city is going to very likely chip and seal it. That's just because of our funding and how we've been doing it since I've been here for all these years. So, thanks.
Councillor Leishman and Councillor Witt.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would like to refer this back to staff for a comparison of the existing level of road, the chip and seal, to give the proponent an opportunity to see what that cash in lieu would look like, and if possible, get us some information on just why that wasn't followed through. Just maybe we can learn something about how this wasn't dealt with maybe quite correctly, but I'd like to get it referred back to staff.
I'll second that. Oh. No. Go ahead.
Okay, we have a seconder. Councillor Elliott?
Thank you. I think Councillor Leishman's idea makes a lot of sense, but I just wanted to ask a couple of questions about this lot. Is it, since we can't see on the picture the back side of that lot, is this the only access point for this lot, or is there an access from the other side?
The access is via Saanich Avenue for this parcel.
Okay, so the parcels that are kind of adjacent to it, they're all accessed from other areas, and the only lot accessed by that extra strip of road would be this lot?
That is the one that was created from the Furness parcel. There was 3 lots. There was a larger lot that on the southern portion of Furness. And then there was a lot similar in size to the one that abuts Saanich. So there was 3 parcels in total.
And then is the entire road only built half on the right-of-way and half on the private land there, or what?
A fair amount of that section of road is not within the road dedication.
Oh, okay.
I didn't build it though, sorry.
Yeah, no, you didn't.
I wanted to clarify if half of that road was indeed actually not on city-owned dedication and was on private land, and whether there's, I mean, that's a entirely different question than what we're addressing here today, but I don't even know what we do with that. Does anybody? I'm not knowing what we do with that.
One, we could look for road dedication on there, expropriation, or shift the whole roadway over so that it sits within the right-of-way. Those are some of the three options that come to my mind. Or we just leave it for the time being.
So back to Councillor Leishman's motion, second. We'll send this back to staff for the re-look at the estimate on the paving.
Will we vote on it?
Do we need to vote on that?
All in favor?
Okay,
Chair,
Mr.
yes,
Jackson.
there's a motion on the floor. What I captured was direction that staff review previous subdivision that created the lots, determine what was required and what occurred, provide alternative road construction standards, and obtain a quote for cash in lieu.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beardig. Okay.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
I wanted to see.
Andy.
I tried to do it, but I didn't know how.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Swanson, Council Policy 226, paid on call firefighters employment policy, Deputy Fire Chief.
Hello. Sir. Good day to Your Worship and the Council and CAO and members of the public. I don't know if this is working or not. I'm Deputy Chief Rocky Swanson, if you don't know who I am. And today, yes, I would like to discuss Council Policy 226, the recommendations that go with that. First, I would like to paint the situation that we're in. So the situation North America-wide is that recruitment for paid-on-call firefighters and volunteer firefighters is down significantly. And there's a litany of reasons for this. And we could start here and go back from COVID being an issue to all kinds of societal changes, why people have time to commit and why they do not, and what we can do to keep them interested and motivated. So there's obviously training issues. You know, the number of the willing doesn't mean the number of the capable. So that's a thing I have to balance. The mission, of course, in Powell River Fire Rescue is to provide a general purpose group of firefighters to close with and engage and destroy the fire with aggressive use of manpower and fireground mobility. That's our mission statement. Our execution to do this is we have 15 career firefighters, 2 chief officers, a public educator, and currently 21 paid-on-call firefighters that are our stop-gap measure, our force multiplier, so to speak. The command structure for Powell River Fire Rescue is, of course, 2 paid-on-call chiefs and 4 career captains and 2 paid-on-call auxiliary captains. Service and support, our basic service and support is obviously city assets, and that's who supports us, in other words, out in the field. So a picture I can paint is that the city mechanics under Pat Kinahan obviously provide us with an exceptional service, and they prop us up. So props to them. I just want to mention that, and that they are our biggest supporter. They keep our rigs on the road 365 days a year without exception. So incredible service and support we have. But my mission today is to discuss with you Council Policy 226 and why that's important and what we have to do to keep these firefighters here. So obviously you have it in front of you, and let's see if I missed something here. So obviously this came out in 2008 was the last time it was looked at, written up, and it's pretty common to take about a decade to review these things. I think that's actually despicable. So I think that I'll change that and hopefully in the future years review this far more often than that. I say it's common because I looked around the province and I called friends in other departments, and everybody said, yeah, it's about every 10 years. There's something wrong with this inherently. So here we are today. The background of this, the policy was adopted in like I said, 2008, and it lays out the basic requirements of our paid-on-call firefighters, what they're paid and what we arm them with to do the job, in other words, clothing, et cetera. I don't see a major financial impact when it comes to looking at some of this. Hence, it kind of fits into our current budget as it is, right? It's just moving money from one position to another. So I would say that the main changes to this policy that I would highlight are basically how we're going to equip them. It used to say in the policy that, and feel free to stop me anytime if I'm rambling here too much, but it's my first time in front of you. We used to lay out specifically what we were going to equip them with. You know, we're going to give you a ball cap and a t-shirt and a pair of pants, and I think that is orthogonal to the way that operations should be run. In other words, the operations officers should be able to decide in the field while we're training at the department what our people need, and we will provide them with precisely what they need in the right place, the right time with the proper equipment is kind of where we're going to be at with that. And so this gives us some latitude of action here to say, hey, what's on the list isn't enough. We actually need this X, Y, and Z now. So it gives me that power to act accordingly and to provide our paid-on-call firefighters with what they need, rather than having to wait and change a policy a decade later or something. So I think I'll stop there and ask you for any questions to come my way, because I really don't know where to go from there. So.
Seems pretty simple. Thank you very much for your excellent report.
Thank you, sir.
And welcome to your first presentation here. Here.
Your worship.
Thank you. Good report. You know, your changes are well highlighted. Makes all kinds of sense to me. The rates we were paying these people all along here, when you look at it, they're kind of embarrassing. I know how difficult it is to keep the very important volunteers in service for us. I mean, we need them. We're a small fire department, and we need these volunteers. You mentioned that you've got, I think it was 21?
21 currently.
You wouldn't happen to know what it was at the department's peak, would you?
Yeah, I do. Well, I'm going to, you're going to have to forgive me if I'm a little out on dates here, but in the 1970s, we were about 100 on call, right? And about 10 years ago was about 40.
Right.
It's
declining. So that's the point I wanted to make here today, is that you know, these folks that do volunteer, men and women, have a proper scale. And I see you've got, you know, the new recruit, and then as they start completing their massive amount of training that they have to do, so that they're insurable under WCB and under our city insurance, this scale really needed to be updated, and you know, your issues of protective equipment shouldn't even come into play. So thank you for this. I appreciate it. It reads well, and I'm in full support.
Councillor Hathaway, and then Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. Excellent report, and you're right, it was long overdue. So I didn't see anything in there that I could even remotely disagree with. I think when I see them out there training Tuesday nights now?
They're there in a couple hours. Yep.
Tuesday nights out there at JP Dallas grounds there. They put in a lot of hours, and as you noted, the numbers are going down, and we have to get that stopped because we are totally dependent on the paid-on-call firefighters to protect our city. So I'm very, very happy to see these upgrades, and I think it's good to go to council. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott? You're muted.
Sorry about that. I keep forgetting I have to change that. So I just was curious about the elimination of Clause 5, which seemed to be a good sense clause, and was it replaced with something else that I can't find, or what so loss of wages due to fire incident was so that folks could get their wages replaced if they didn't go to their other job and intended the fire instead, and you're taking that out. Is there some reason for that?
It's not removed. The city has its own policies on that, so instead of adding to this policy, we'll follow the city's policies, right? So that is still something that's there. The same with, that's a great question, and actually the same with the meal allowances and all that kind of stuff for reimbursements when they're traveling. We had our own policy before, and now we're in line with the rest of the city, which makes way more sense.
And so is our policy equally generous as that clause, or would it change it in some way?
So if I understand your question correctly, then I think we're talking about exactly the same thing. They're the same. So
okay.
If I hear you right.
Well, if somebody has a job that pays pretty good wages, and they lost the wages for that day because they went to a fire instead. This clause bases their remuneration on what they would have earned had they gone to their regular job, and I'm wondering if whatever's replacing it would do that as well, or whether it was set some other way.
As far as I know, they're covered the same way. I'll be happy to get back to you with that. I honestly can't pull that out of my...
Mr. CAO.
I'll just add, it was moved to the new section 7 in the new policy. So 5 is now embedded within section 7.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
That's specific to training, though.
Maybe she's looking at the wrong... I think we could be looking at 2 different pages, maybe.
Okay,
I think
maybe.
possible, yeah. It's not removed. They're still covered for wages lost, if that's your question. So.
Right, this is I seem to recall when I first started as an emergency services provider that a lot of my colleagues had pagers and left their jobs when the pager went off, and it was generally due to the generosity of their employer back then. Often wages were not discontinued, but this original section 7 here is to compensate for that should the employee lose their wages.
Right, and so we moved, it's just moved around pages.
Okay.
It's still there. I think I misunderstood her question at the beginning of this.
Right.
2 different things, meal allowance claims and this. So that's just been moved, but they're still covered.
Okay.
It's not being removed unless I'm unaware of some removal without my knowledge. But
No, through the chair, it's just been moved to 7.2 now. So it just because.
So it's been changed to per diem?
Appendix C.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, so it hasn't been removed at all. It's just been moved because of the other changes and section differences. Yeah, it can be a bit tricky to follow with the original policy and then the track changes policy and then the actual policy for adoption.
Oh, okay, I see it. Sorry, thank you.
Section C, III there.
Yeah, okay, so that's on Appendix C. I was looking at the track changes, and what's included in item 7 is not on the track changes.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you so much.
So great, thank you very much.
Yeah, so they are covered, just to be clear. We're not going to...
Right.
And it's an interesting one because it's not something the auxiliaries actually enact all that often. You know, they're not there trying to get more, right? They're just trying to show up and get paid.
But consistent with a lot of other considerations that in editing this policy, this is consideration for people who are willing to provide their service to start with. So highly consistent with that, respecting that, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, we're not going to take away from them. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Doughton.
Yeah, and it's quite a list of changes there. Must have taken some time to work through it all. What you're saying is that the increases in costs, and there's some significant ones in the cost of wages, aren't calculated separately in this report, but they won't change the fire department's overall budget for 2022?
If you look at the number of paid-on-call firefighters versus the number of calls, and you look at the actual remuneration that we're offering, you're looking at they come into call, let's say, 100, 150 times a year, right, for 2 hours at a time. And so this is a very small figure in the grand scheme of things. Since we used to have the same budget with a lot more paid on call, that number, even in the last 5 years, has been cut in half. So by increasing this wage, I'm still way under what we were putting out annually, because we had way more firefighters before.
Okay, thanks. That adds a little information.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Great.
The council?
Council. Thank you very much, Mr. Swanson. Okay, on to community engagement reports. Anybody want to start that?
Sure, I'll get it over with.
Mayor.
Short and sweet.
Biggest one first.
Short and sweet. As you know, I was traveling last week, but attended some joint working group possible name change meetings. Continuing to be working on some social housing issues with the CAO and a few folks from that area. More to come soon. I was approached by, many of you know Tony Papa from the Brooks School that teaches the film school and such, a very successful program. I think we even get students from out of town to take that course. And his associate, Christian Christian Piers Bately, who I've met on a number of occasions, who works with Tony here and there, and are always working at trying to bring new films to Powell River, and they're actually working on another one now they'd like to bring here. And we're working on a policy so that we can accommodate this type of thing seamlessly. But anyways, they've approached us, and I've been sort of chatting with the CAO, and what they're looking at doing is they're doing a fundraiser for Ukrainian folks. They've had a number of shows, and you pay to get tickets. You can show up and online. It's a paid subscription, or in person at the venues, and they would like to do one here in Powell River. And so I've been, working with them, and not, still need to let them know from our point of view. I think all they would be looking from us is the theater, if it's available on the date in question, because they were going to use, I believe, the Patricia Theater, but it was booked. And so basically it's a stage production of well-known comedians, etc. People pay, and then the monies go with the other productions off to help those in the Ukraine. I told them that I would personally make calls on their behalf to people I know, because the actors are not paid, from what I understand. It's all charity. That I would be doing just some personal stuff, but that the city would possibly look at doing the arranging the theater. I think they were looking for more for us to do some advertising and promotion. I don't think that's something we should be getting into. But anyway, as that sort of rolls around, we'll hear more about it. I intended it was a great performance. I know Councillor Doubt was there, and possibly Councillor Leishman, of the students at the Jazz Festival at the Max Cameron Theatre. It was just a great production, and it was nice to get out, given the COVID issues and such. But it was nice just to get out and listen to the talent of these young students and the passion of these instructors, these teachers. They're so passionate, the ones that excel and really try and give their students the love of music, the love of people. So that was enjoyable, and just gonna leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you. Who's next? Councillor Hathaway?
Mr. Corporate Officer, I have this all written out, so you don't need to write it down. It's a little bit lengthy because I didn't report last time, and there was some things that I wanted to report out on. So very quickly, March 28th, attended the Community Action Team Committee meeting, which was a good discussion around in-house programming for the supportive housing project, so that was a good meeting. March 29th, along with Councillors Leishman and Palm, met with Housing for Humanity group from the Lower Sunshine Coast, and we had a follow-up meeting on April 11th to see if we can move forward with possibly a project in Powell River. So that's a little bit exciting. And then April 1st to 3rd, as with most of the rest of council, attended AVICC. And a couple of the highlights were I participated in a discussion on legislative reform for modernizing local government act and community charter as they relate to regional districts. And it appears there's imbalances that exist across the province between cities and RDs. So we're not alone in that. And new legislation is expected in 2023. And then I participated in a couple of affordable housing sessions at AVICC. April 8th, I attended the regular joint working group meeting on the possible name change, and I attended Supportive Housing Community Oversight Committee along with Councillor Doubt, and that group hasn't met since COVID, so it's now going to meet regularly on a monthly basis to discuss concerns around supportive housing, and members of the public also attend that meeting, so it's good Committee. And I attended a webinar on how to provide workforce housing, which was quite interesting, kind of like the Whistler model that we talk about a lot, where people come here and their minimum wage or not great wages and can't afford housing, so how you can provide for them. April 12th, I attended the regular Ministry of Transportation meeting along with Councillor Leishman. And then I attended the possible name change open house at Dwight Hall. That's all I'll say on that for now. And on April 13th, I attended the housing, that's today, no, this is the 19th, the Housing Roundtable Discussion Group, and also attended the presentation for sea level change for Powell River. And then today we had our quarterly Social Action Planning Advisory Committee meeting this morning, and early this afternoon attended the Regional Emergency Executive Committee meeting. So this is my last meeting for today, and I'm meetinged out. Thank you.
Looks like it. Councillor Dove?
My turn? Okay. It's been a busy little time. I attended along with Councillor Hathaway, get the right person. Been to a lot of places with a lot of different councillors in the last 2 weeks. But I went to the Supportive Housing Community Committee, basically. It was a good committee. I went there on behalf of the regional district. There were representatives from management of the supportive housing there. There were a north and a south side community representative there. There were first responders, police, fire, ambulance there, and along with a resident of the supportive housing with a very interesting set of points of view. It was useful. Pretty happy that they're getting going again. They seems to be prepared to meet on a monthly basis. It's a large group, but I think there's an opportunity for some communication to happen. There's definitely issues that need to be supported and worked through, and I think everyone is committed to doing that. That evening, I went to the Jazz Festival. I attended the Jazz Festival along, I think, with Councillor Leishman and the Mayor. One of the high points of that for me was about 200 K-12 kids that were up on the stage. I found out later that it wasn't just every K-12 kid that could sing in the regional district that showed up there. They had to go through auditions, and they got up on the stage. 150 or 200 of them, all in matching T-shirts, and sang "You Are My Sunshine," and it was great. Followed by a lot of students from around the coastal area of British Columbia, and it was kind of amazing the talent that these young people's had and what they put on. Monday, or the Tuesday following, was the Townsite Ratepayers Association meeting. They were excited about the city's application for a grant to finish the bike path from the high school up towards the rec center, and the big topic of discussion was traffic safety and speed limits, and they would like things to slow down. They kept making that point over and over again. Then I attended a seminar basically on coastal flooding that the regional district is doing a study on. Basically the entire regional district identifying places where there's risk of coastal flooding, and there's been basically the beginning consultation was happening on that. And then after that, it was the Wildwood Ratepayers Association. What do you know? Again, they're concerned about speeding in their neighborhoods and want to see traffic slowed down a little bit, or interested in what's going on with the potential name change committee. And that added up to a very busy couple of weeks.
Thank you. Councillor Paul?
Thank you. Through the chair, a couple of key issues. Mayor mentioned our digital film school. I'll just let him know that a couple of our students went to regional competitions recently, and they won at the region. They went to provincials. Last week they won there. They're off to nationals. So,
wow. Tony does a good job.
Tony
these
does
people.
an amazing job. Every time he enters, he seems to go to nationals, and last time he went, he brought home a gold medal. So that's amazing. Now, What else did I want to talk about here? Oh, BC Ferries. And the reason I wanted to talk about BC Ferries, as you're well aware, this past weekend, because of whether it's mechanical, whether it's weather-related, whether it's staffing shortages, we seem to be missing a lot of sailings this long weekend. On the news, people stuck. So there is a planned meeting for Powell River and the advisory committee, and that will take place on Friday, April 29th from 1 to 2 p.m. with all of the top echelons of BC Ferries in discussion to talk about the peak season planning for Horseshoe Bay. So that's going to be happening shortly. I'll bring a report from that meeting. And then lastly, attending this past week, the joint working group public consultation at Dwight Hall one evening last week. I think it was Wednesday, maybe it was Thursday, can't remember which. Quite surprised that, as ex-Chief Gerhardt pointed out today, not a lot of room to offer comments, ask questions, and it's, as a counselor sitting in that facility with only about 30 to 40 people that weren't working there in attendance, it's shameful when something of this magnitude is being proposed and people can't answer questions and have their voice heard. I would strongly encourage our joint working group members to have dialogue, to come up with something that is workable, to appease our citizens. And I strongly would recommend, as I've said in this chamber previously, coming up with some type of plan that works for both parties, a compromise, something middle ground, so that we can all move on, because what I see happening in our community right now is sad. And I've had numerous people say to me, it isn't right. It's setting us back in our region 40, 50, 60 years in terms of what was happening previously. I've only been here going on close to 40, and the healing and the friendship, the camaraderie, the sense of community kept growing each decade. And now I see a lot of that falling by the wayside. And it just saddens me to no end. And I'm hoping the working group can get a hold of this and actually make something happen there for the good people that live in Powell River. That's all I'm going to say, but it's just not good. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Leishman?
I think some of the other counselors already gave my report for me, so I'm good, thanks.
Councillor Elliott? You did.
Okay. Sorry. I have a delay on my screen, and so the actual situation doesn't show up for a few minutes, so sometimes I don't know whether I'm on or off. So I went to the SAPAC this morning and the Joint Working Group virtually on April 8th. I had tickets to the Jazz Festival, and since I had COVID, I couldn't go. I got quite sick for a little while, and I wasn't able to attend many of the things I wanted to. So my community engagement was a little bit quashed over the last 2 weeks by my recovery from COVID. I'm happy to announce I'm feeling much, much better, and have been able to get out and do things since about last Thursday. I did attend a family funeral out of town on the weekend, and so I didn't attend events over the weekend here in town, and I don't have much else to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Which comes down to me. I did one thing that wasn't mentioned already, and that was represent the mayor at the Paul River Community Forest AGM, which is ex officio as well, except for maybe one vote that we do annually at that.
That's it.
Yeah, but really amazing to hear the financial report and see how productive that community forest is for this community. It just blows my mind every time, and it's even more so this year than any previous year, I think. So it was a real honor to be there. I also attended the possible name change event at Dwight Hall, flood adaptation workshop, and the Wildwood Ratepayers. And that's pretty much it for me.
Chair?
Yes.
Maybe I missed it, but did somebody talk about the fact that some city members, I think maybe Councillor Hathaway, attended a tent city conference? I know Councillor Doubt did.
I reported on that at a previous.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I had attended a legal seminar on the aspects of tent cities,
Right.
municipalities.
And you reported last time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, not seeing anything else here. We have no other agenda items, so we'll go on to questions. So, over to Mr. Galinsky. Thank you. Mr. Whitaker, any questions from you?
No questions to the chair, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, any questions from the public?
No callers, Chair.
Okay, and I'm sure that the number has been on the...
It's been on since the start of community engagement, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Am I required to read out the phone number here? Okay, I think it's pretty much well understood now. Any questions from the gallery? Anyone, any of our guests today have any questions to ask? Seeing none. Motion to adjourn. Oh, Mr. Jones, nothing since the past 30 seconds. Motion to adjourn.
We'll move.
Mayor, Councillor Leishman, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Good meeting, everybody.
Awesome, thank you. Nice to
Thanks, everyone.
Good chair.